atWork Australia would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and pay our respect to elders past and present. This podcast is being recorded in the southwest and Western Australia, which is land of the Noongar people. We'd also like to pay our respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from wherever you may be listening from. This episode may refer to explicit drug use, self-harm, or domestic violence. If you need support, please refer to the links in our show notes or on our website. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Shaun's Candid Conversations. Today I spoke with one of atWork Australia's incredible clients, Desi. She told us about her life journey, her employment history, how she spent 36 years being addicted to drugs and alcohol, and how employment is helping her in her recovery process. Thanks so much for coming in today to have a chat with me about your life journey and how atWork Australia has been able to support you to re-enter the workplace.
Pleasure. Thank you, Shaun.
I know in a previous conversation you mentioned that you had quite an extensive employment history. Are you able to tell us a bit about what you've done for work in the past?
Yeah, wow. Like I got plucked out of school at 16, or I think I was 17 years old, and I was a junior typist, they used to call it back then, and that was the beginning of a 10-year career with Commonwealth Public Service. That took me, through various states. I lived in Port Augusta to start with, and I got promoted and went to Adelaide, and then from there I travelled to Darwin and I worked for Defence, Naval Officer Commanding North Australia Area's Personal Secretary up there as a civvy. Came back to Adelaide, and it was when computers were first introduced. I was 20 years of age. I was running or supervising 4 floors of girls at that stage, in a big building, and these big framework computers that we had back then, they were freaking massive. From there, I did some leather dressmaking. I've worked in the food industry. My most recent job prior to a breakdown that I ended up having, I had a breakdown while I was working, but I was driving trucks underground in the gold mines on the Western Australian Northern Territory border, and then in South Australia on both two of the most remote locations in Australia. Gosh, there's been quite a bit.
That sounds like your work's taken you all over the place. Is there any states that you haven't worked in?
I haven't worked in Victoria. I did a year's volunteer aid work in Thailand. So I left a marriage and jumped on a plane with a best mate and went to Thailand to teach English, and that was a really interesting experience. Then came back and there's another job, did some bar work, and it was, while I was doing that bar work that I was introduced to somebody that, how I come to be in the mines. I worked at Solar Optical at one stage, so like the manufacturing side of lenses. I worked in for optical for about 5 years, so that was like from the floor up, manufacturing the lenses, to being a leading hand, to running departments, and then working in like AR coding and research and development.
You had your finger in many different pies, and sounds like some management and leadership positions as well along the way.
Yes.
If you don't mind sharing, what are some of the events that led to you needing support from atWork Australia to re-enter the workplace?
My story is one of drug dependence. That began at a really young age. When I say a young age, I was probably experimenting with things. I was always very curious, I thought, around 16 years of age, and in hindsight now, because I now work a 12-step program with Narcotics Anonymous. So a framework that I use and a toolbox of skills today to use, which is the 12 steps. So I can talk, about what was going on back then that I didn't know. But, back then I had no clue that I was a really insecure girl that grew up. We were in housing trust in South Australia country, Port Augusta. I was one of the only kids in my sort of local area that was Catholic. So I went to Catholic school and I was taunted and beaten up over things like that. So, like we have peer pressure today and we have bullying online and things like that. It was alive and present when I was a kid too, and, people of my age. So the bullying was there, and I was a big girl going through school. My parents were 10 years older than the average person when my mum and dad had me. And that was quite unheard of back then, for a woman of nearly 40 years of age to have a child. And there was 10 years difference between my brother and I. They'd actually given up trying for me. So I always had this attitude that I was a mistake.
Yeah.
And for as long as I can remember, people ask me, are you born with the disease of addiction or do you develop it? And hand on heart today, I still can't really answer that. I don't know. I think you're born with it. And I think
Yep.
there's certain things in life that lead you on, where you fall into that pattern and you look for answers. So definitely feeling the odd one out, never was comfortable in my own skin. It wasn't like a schizophrenia type of thing that I understand from voices in my head, but I had a really negative internal dialect that always used to be there to put me down. And I struggled to, fit in with the cool kids at school, although I did. But it was always hard work. I was always seeking validation from others, never felt comfortable in my own skin, always felt less than, was very insecure. I was a smart girl at school and I was very intelligent, and I used to get called in because I was so good with exams, they would think I was cheating. So it was like I got attacked from all areas, like I just couldn't kind of win. And then consequently, from the time I put the first drug in my system that actually worked, because I smoked marijuana for like 12 months and nothing actually happened. I never even got stoned. And then I eventually did. Then I tried, experimenting with pretty much just about everything that you can think of. And in a really short space of time, I was introduced to heroin. And that was it's the usual story that I used to hear, was the people that used to say, if anyone ever gives you a shot of heroin, I'll kill them. They were always the people that seemed to be the ones that put the needle in your arm. Unfortunately, I didn't know I had a disease of addiction, which was a disease of more. So if you're not feeling good, you want to feel better. And if you're feeling better, if you're feeling good, you want to feel better than that. So it's the disease of more. So when they gave me that first shot, I remember everyone watching to make sure I was okay. And I kind of looked at them and said, yeah, I'm all right, but I want more. I had no clue. It was the beginning of more. And what happened when I put that drug in my system was all the internal dialogue shut up. It went quiet, and I
It's your
felt
way of
confident.
escaping.
Yeah, it was an escape. And that, unfortunately, was the beginning of, 36 years of addiction for me. I had friends that could stop. For a long time, I thought it was a big party and I could travel around Australia. And unfortunately, with this disease, you scope out the same kind of people in a very short period of time. And it was all fun and games, for a really, really long time, until the drugs didn't work anymore. And I wanted to stop. And I was, what we call in Narcotics Anonymous, using against my will. And, I'd had really good jobs throughout my life. And in the end, I got sacked from a job working in the mines, and I had a breakdown. When I say I had a breakdown, it wasn't clinically classed as a breakdown, but I virtually had to nearly start to walk and talk and to integrate into society again. And I was on heavily medicated antidepressants and, like bureaucratically illegal doses from doctors, and that's just how high, it was to keep me from suiciding. And I did have a suicide attempt, and I ended up, my family disowned me, or my mum was told, she wasn't allowed to have anything more to do with me. And I ended up homeless on the streets. I lost my home. I'd become a really big gambler. And
Wow.
that was like the last 8 to 10 years of my using. So by the time I eventually got stable accommodation, I met a guy at the age I was nearly 52 or 51, and I never believed, because, drugs had become my partner for a really long time, and you isolate while you're in that period when they're not working anymore. And I met this guy and there was chemistry between us, and I never expected, to be in a relationship again, especially at that age. But what I didn't know was he was narcissistic. I didn't even know what that meant. And it only took like 6 months of being together when things turned really sour, and that turned into a really nasty domestic violence relationship.
You met him at a very vulnerable point in your life, and
Correct.
there was some very unfortunate timing to meet that person.
Correct. So by the time the rose-coloured lenses has kind of come off and I was starting to catch him out with things, he became very abusive, which, ended up, I had to go to the police from a doctor saying to me, he's going to kill you next time, the damage that he's doing to you. And from there, the police put me in, like, it wasn't witness protection, but they put me into a motel for 10 days and then got me into a women's domestic violence refuge, which should have been for a maximum of 3 weeks. And I ended up being there for 8 months because they just couldn't get me accommodation or anything. By this stage, I'd left my marriage. I didn't have any children. We tried really hard to have them through IVF, etc., and that hadn't happened. I had a cat, so I wasn't criteria for, housing accommodation. And eventually I had a woman that was from Narcotics Anonymous. She came and knocked on my door and through talking, I mentioned something about surrendering, and surrender is part of the program. We need to surrender first to be able to accept help. And I had no clue, that's what I was saying to her, though. And she asked me, would I be privy to getting some help and letting them, get some information for me? And I said yes. And I went along to this meeting at NA, and, I found my tribe. I found my people. People weren't saying, like, get a rod up your back, just stop, don't, take it anymore. You're really weak, just put the drugs down. But, you don't
It's not
think
easy
lightly.
as that, is it?
No,
That's
not when you
thinking
want to take your
logically
life.
That's thinking logically from a healthy mind as well. People haven't
Correct.
experienced what you've been going through. It sounds like it's been quite a traumatic journey that you've been on, and wow.
Yeah. And the worst part was once I got clean, I call it thawing out, because once you actually put down the drugs, and alcohol was always a big part in there, but it wasn't like my drug of choice. It was when there wasn't anything else available to shut my head up. When you put that down, you're still faced with all the situations that you had as a kid that led you to use in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
you're not solving the problem. You're only adding to it, really, aren't you?
So it was a disease of thinking, I realised that I had, and I had to find some ways and means to remain abstinent. Otherwise, I was going to die. And I realised that by now, and that was through Narcotics Anonymous. But during that time, when I got clean, I realised, I looked in the mirror, and I had been so numb for so many years that I didn't even see, when I used to look in the mirror, an old lady, a 52-year-old woman looking back at myself anymore. I was so numb.
Been 36 years you've been taking drugs. You don't realise how the years turn into a blur, I guess.
Exactly. I had this older lady looking back at me, and then I thought, once I got clean and I realised that, life could be better, and I saw evidence of that around me in Narcotics Anonymous, I developed this fear of, but who is ever going to employ me again now? What have I got to bring to the table? I haven't been employed in like 12 years. Once they know that I'm with drugs, and I was on a disability support pension at that stage, because they were doing everything that they could just to keep me alive, because I wanted to die. I'd say the first, what are we now? I'm coming up to 10 years clean in May of this year, totally abstinent from everything. I would say it was only in January of 2023 that I bounded into James's office at atWork Australia after being on my first holiday in 20 years to Queensland with one of my girlfriends. And I never had the confidence to do anything like that, and said to him, I've just had my first holiday away in 20 years. I want to try and get a job. Can you help me here? I'd like to at least see whether with my mental health issues that, I'm possibly employable again, or if anyone would employ me. And so began the journey.
Congratulations on the progress you've made. It sounds like you've come along leaps and bounds, and you're doing tremendous in your recovery. If you said 10 years clean and sober now, so well done.
Yeah, thank you. That's in May. Yep.
There must have been times throughout that 36 years where you just imagined that you couldn't possibly ever get off drugs or make these changes.
Absolutely, and that's what we do. We do geographicals, which is all the things that I did. People thought I was really good. I worked in public service and had 10-year career, and I moved around Australia. And actually what I was doing, I was running away from myself all the time to new situations where I'd burn bridges. And what I would realise was there I was again with myself, and you would do it all over again. And then you would think that if I just got the perfect relationship, I'll stop using. Well, you do that, and then the rose-coloured lenses, as I say, wear off. And there you are stuck with, not wanting to share your drugs with a partner. So you go through all of that stuff, and you get to the point where you think, I just can't give up. And this program that I found with Narcotics Anonymous, to me, for addicts, is the only thing that has ever worked.
You mentioned before about your working history. How are you able to maintain these jobs while you're living this lifestyle?
I gambled. I also had really good jobs. It was back in the days where people had money in the bank and things like that.
No, I mean, why you're going through such heavy drug use, how are you still able to maintain a job and show up on a Monday morning
because they were enhancement jobs, enhancement drugs in the end that I was on. I was taking methamphetamine, and, really I couldn't function or get out and have a shower or do anything like that unless I had that stuff in my body. And when I was using narcotics, it was a confidence builder. So, both of them enabled me to function so well. But, spend some time with me and you would realise how messed up I really was.
Yeah, it was just a cover for the pain you were suffering underneath.
Absolutely. And as I say, a lot of my friends, they were what you call recreational users. So I never used to understand how they could stop on a Sunday night and then go to work Monday. I didn't have that capacity to do that. My drive inside of me and my pain and my voice in my head was so big that I couldn't stop. So, that was why I lost family, lost my houses, lost my husband, lost all of those things. If I'd have had children, no doubt I would have lost them as well.
Your addictive personality that didn't allow you to stop, so you kept on wanting more and more.
Correct.
I know you've mentioned Narcotics Anonymous, but what other types of supports are out there for people who might be facing similar challenges?
There are a lot of different supports out there, but I can only speak for the one that has worked for me because I tried many. There's detox centres, there's counselling sessions you go along to, there's harm minimisation things out there as well. But for me, harm minimisation wasn't going to cut it because, that just meant that I could still use, but not as much. And that I have to have total abstinence. So I can only speak for myself as a really addicted addict that has got to stop everything and find a new way to live and unpack. Well, this is what NA has enabled me to do, is to unpack my life and dispel the belief systems which were lies that my disease, which is my head, has always told me. And I had no clue. I thought everybody else thought the same as me. I didn't know. So that's what this 12-step program, which, if I had my way, every child would learn it in school.
Learn the dangers of what the damages that this could do to your life.
Well, not even so much that. It's just like, here's a problem. How do I get in the solution? Where's the framework? What do I use, the tools to enable me to get out of this situation, not create the same situations over and over again, which is insanity? And how do I do things differently and invite different resources in? And how do I action that stuff and make it happen? And that's what this program's taught me to do. It's a framework.
That's fantastic. And it's a framework that you can apply to other aspects of your life and sort of
every single area of my life, every single problem I have, I use the same. There's 12 steps. I've got to work out which ones I need to use. And, the first part is not numbing the feelings to start with. And then, knowing which support networks to reach out, because sometimes, the disease becomes more subtle the more time you're clean. Well, at the very beginning, it's very evident what's going on, but it's like we have a saying in Narcotics Anonymous that your disease is always in the next room doing push-ups, just waiting for you to fall, and it's only ever one day behind me. So I'm only ever a day ahead of my disease. So you've got to be diligent with your program, but it's become a way of life for me now.
Yeah, so, you can't just say, I've been through it for 10 years now, I can just stop. It's something that you must remain doing for ongoing, I guess. I'd done a little bit of research before I come and had a conversation with you, and I found some statistics that said in 2021 to 2022, there was over 131,000 people aged 10 and over receiving treatment for drug and alcohol treatment services. So 50% of those people were between the ages of 20 and 39 as well. So do you have any suggestions why this age group might be so susceptible to drug addiction?
Yeah, I think, like when I came in, it was quite hard to see why I had an addiction, because I came from a family. Mum and Dad were still together when my dad passed, like they'd had a long life together. But what I found when I hit the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous was a lot of people came from sexual abuse. A lot of people came from broken families, and a lot of people were born into families that were already addicts.
Yeah.
And that's that bracket right in there. And the reason I think it goes up to your research of the age that it stops is most people die or commit suicide. There's a really high number that don't ever make it past that. There used to be a saying, by the time you hit 30, if you haven't given up, you're very close to dying.
Oh, wow. And what do you think we could do to try and reduce these numbers to help more people?
I think the government's got to get more involved in the areas of where it's really needed, like the only people that really get help, from what I can see, are those that have got money to go to private rehabs. And they can be like 2 months inside there. It can be $60,000 and things like that. And we might have, I know. And there might be like 3 funded rehabs in the state. And, I know, I go to drug and alcohol services once a month now, to the withdrawal services. And there's a team of, or every week they go in, but I go in once a month. And they actually speak to addicts that are withdrawing in their detoxing. And they run like a little NA meeting, and they also tell a little bit about our life story, our backstory, and then like moving forward, what we've done to overcome that. And, that program, when things went bad with like COVID and stuff like that, that got shut down. I'm not going to say why on here, who got preference over that, but the government is the one that has shut those things down. and just said, like basically, because I didn't know until I was getting clean that alcohol is the only drug that you can actually die on from detoxing. I thought heroin would have been one of them, but it's not. So they allowed people with alcohol addictions to come in there still at the detox. But for anybody else, and we know how bad our ice and meth addiction is in Australia, if those people had to just roll up to hospital or get an ambulance,
Yeah.
that was the only avenue for them.
Wow. And you mentioned the costs of some of those rehab programs, and that's really just completely unaffordable for the common person, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
what's the other options?
Not many people find their way to NA, but those that do, that come in, there's only a 4% success rate.
Oh,
So
wow.
like when I started with Narcotics Anonymous, at that point then 10 years ago, there was 144,000 meetings a day taking place worldwide of
Wow, that's
Narcotics
incredible, isn't it?
Anonymous. Yeah, yeah. So as
Wow.
I say, it's the only thing for me that has ever worked. So it's like teaching these 12-step programs. And I think educating, like I said, if these programs could be introduced to kids at school, and teach them how to work through problems, how to problem solve, and how these framework, it's mind blowing, the
Do
difference that it could make.
do Narcotics Anonymous have ambassadors or people who go out and do presentations to schools or present to different organizations or services?
Well, it's all fully self-funded. We're not allowed to accept contributions and stuff from outside facilities. And we don't endorse other companies or anything like that. But, like what I was saying, what I do with alcohol and withdrawal services, I go there, and then we have what's called H&I, which is hospitals and institutions we go to. And then it can be on a bigger level where we go into companies and talk to companies about it. But it's really bureaucratic. It's hard work. Getting into jails to help people in jails is like, it's like trying to get inside a gold bullion place. Like
Yeah.
there's so many hurdles to get over, and it can take a year for it to happen to get in if it does, or it can just get shut after a year's worth of work. It can just get shut down and the doors closed on it, and no, you can't come in.
And all you're trying to do is really is help people to make them a better part of their community, a better part of society
Yeah.
once they're released from prison.
People don't have to die today once they know about Narcotics Anonymous.
Yes, it's a shame that it's not more readily available to everyone who needs that type of support.
Yes, and you might need to edit this out. I don't know, but I know because my brother, things were really bad between him and I, and he's worked really hard all his life, and he has money, but he was at his wit's end. He didn't know what to do with me by the time the wheels really fell off, and it was around the time with Ben Cousins, all that was going on with him in Western Australia with football. And my brother was nearly on his knees, wanted to write to Ben's dad and say to him about Narcotics Anonymous, man, this is what you need to do. You need to get Ben involved in this stuff. And it nearly brought me to my knees because things were so bad with my brother. But, the passion that he had behind it, knowing that this is the only thing that's ever worked, is the framework that we have of teaching.
Yeah,
Because you can't just remove things and say, right, go out there and live. You need to learn a new way to live.
of course not. It's not. Nothing's going to change that easily. And I guess from your brother's point of view, he saw the damage that it's done to his family, and he wants to
Yes.
be able to help other families to not experience that as well.
Absolutely. So now he donates to things like that. He's an anonymous donator, and he does what he can to help. But he puts his money into different areas now. Yes.
That's good to hear. We shift directions a little bit. Can you tell us a bit more about what you're up to now and what you're doing for work these days?
Yeah, so through atWork Australia's help, like I said, I bounded into this office in January, all keen, ready, let's go, let's try and find me a job. And very quickly, all my old demons from the past came running back in. And by the second appointment that I had with James, I was a crumpled mess on the other side of the desk. I don't think I can do this. I'm in fear. I'm on a DSP. I can't afford to lose that. Who's going to employ me? I don't know. It was all of this stuff. And he just supported me the whole way through this, and now I got the job that I have myself, but it's disability support carer. But what was needed with that in order for me to be able to get that job was I needed a whole lot of clearances to work with children, to work with vulnerable people. I needed police clearances and checks, and atWork Australia and James, they just came in and they did everything for me. So while that was all happening, I got to go off and start work. I got some modules from my boss to do, and I've done some online courses. I've just finished one a couple of weekends ago on handling dangerous drugs that I can administer and stuff now. I work with disadvantaged people with NDIS programs, and I've been working with some what we call little people, a family of little people. And so that's all three of them in their family got dwarfism, but they've also got the father's got problems there as well. He's not 50 years old and he's had 49 surgeries, one of them being a total spinal fusion, and he has a catheter. So yeah, the father has had a total spinal fusion. So I've been able to learn all about working with these people and people with OCD, things that have got to be done in exact routines, which absolutely works. It's right down my alley because I suffered from all of this stuff myself. So it's like uniformity and regularity.
And I guess you can relate to these people in some way.
Oh, so much so, so much so. And then I might leave there and go to work with someone who's got schizophrenic illness, and they've got social anxiety and disorders and can't go out in public. And I support them and might take them shopping or do their washing, cook them a meal. Like one of the guys, when he's really, really distressed, we go out in the car and we play Spotto. I've got him onto that, who can get the most yellow cars first, and things like that. Then I work with a lady at night who's got MS, multiple sclerosis. She's had it since 14 years of age. She's only 45 years old now. But, when I do those shifts with her, it's what we call a two assist. So there's got to be two people go to her to help her, because we've got to use like lifters, machines and stuff to help lift her in and out of, toilet, bed, showering, all of that kind of thing, and, administer her medication and keep her happy, and she's only a 45-year-old woman. So, the range of work that I've gotten to do working with this and, working with children as well is just mind-blowing. And what it's actually done is there's a step in Narcotics Anonymous that we call the 9th step, and it's about making amends. And it's not saying sorry for the things you've done. It's actually making right the things that you did wrong. And if you owed $40,000, then about paying money back and things like that. So I get such an enormous sense of fulfillment in, this area in my stomach, what I used to call, what we call in Narcotics Anonymous, a God-shaped hole. So I feel like I'm giving back to society. Such a blessing that I've got the opportunity to go to work on a daily basis in a job that I've got the best boss I've ever had. I've got such a diverse variety of work that I do, and I get to help people laugh and make their day feel better. And it's like me giving back, because I was a menace to society in the end on the streets, when I was in drug addiction. So, this has all been because of atWork Australia that this has come about.
And you can just tell by listening to you talk about your work just how passionate you are about your job and supporting other people. When it was time to return to work, what do you think was your biggest challenge or fear about returning to work?
My biggest fear and my biggest challenge was I didn't know who or how to trust anymore. So my thing was, when Centrelink said you can go and work this amount of hours, I couldn't trust that. I thought, if I go to work, they're going to take this away from me, and to take all the stuff away from me, not physical things that I had worked hard for in getting clean. It was my safety around me, and being able to live now. And I've gotten community housing. I can't afford to pay the rent that's, out there at the moment. I was afraid of all that stuff falling down around me. So the fear was so great to step through that and trust that I was going to be supported through this, and that people weren't going to do the opposite to what they'd said to me that they would do. And atWork Australia, and I keep saying James because he's been freaking amazing, supporting me through this, and just kept, gently but firmly pushing me and nudging me forward, enabled me to do that. And, like I can remember rolling in after I'd been working a week or something and bounded into the office for a catch up with him, and him going, holy, like, wow, look at you. I can't believe, you can see that you're just buzzing. So, fear itself of not able to trust.
Yeah. And, we always say that finding employment is life-changing. I know finding employment for me has been life-changing as well. Do you think that finding employment could be a good avenue to help people in similar situations to you, to help in the recovery process?
Absolutely. And a lot of people do go out and get employment when they get into recovery, or they'll study. But, I was faced with that I'm too old, who's going to employ me type thing. So if it hadn't have been for atWork Australia, I would probably never have tried to come out and work. And I got to that point where I believe that the next part of my program, it's not that I don't have anything more to learn in Narcotics Anonymous, but I feel like to really push through first, I needed to have a go at working. I needed to perhaps have a go at being in a relationship. It doesn't mean to say either of them were going to work or I was going to like it, but I didn't want to not do it through fear of doing it, having a go.
Sometimes you got to push yourself and force yourself to get outside your comfort zone, and then you can really reap the benefits of what's available to you. And
absolutely. So, I did that. I've had another trip back to Bali. I'm in the dating scene at the moment, and I've been out on about 5 dates with a particular guy at the moment. And part of that was I never even wanted to enter that because I was afraid of anyone saying to me, "Well, what do you do for work?" I'm on a DSP. What have I got to bring to the table? So I was small. So this has allowed me to come out and start to live.
I can totally understand where you're coming from. I come to atWork Australia as a client as well myself. I don't know if I told you before, but I'm legally blind, and I spent 10 years unemployed, and I really didn't know how I was going to find a job with my disability. And atWork Australia was they offered me a job now where I get to speak about the benefits of hiring a diverse and inclusive workplace. So I'm very lucky for the opportunity I've been given.
Yeah, and congratulations to you too. Well done. Amazing.
It's not easy. Sometimes you do get stuck in your own head thinking there's going to be no employer who's going to want to give me an opportunity because of the barriers that I have. Did you ever find that where you thought, what employer is going to want to hire me or give me an opportunity because of my past?
Oh, absolutely. First and foremost, in the front of my mind. It was always that. Yeah. Once they find out about what I've done, where I've been, my history, and then when I saw this place that was about helping people who were, with disabilities to get work, I'm like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. I do a lot of work in promoting atWork Australia and our services and how we can help people to overcome their barriers to find employment. And you'd be surprised at how many people are unaware of what disability employment services are. So it's great to be able to build more awareness around that.
Fabulous.
What would you say to employers who might have hesitation about giving a person who is trying to overcome some form of barrier an opportunity?
Look, what have they got to lose? You don't know anything really. I mean, other than Facebook and social media today and doing some, background check, you don't really know a person until they come and work for you. So let me tell you, there's pilots, there's lawyers, there's solicitors, we've got doctors in the rooms. This disease of addiction doesn't discriminate. So just because somebody might have a label or a title or, be in a really good job doesn't mean to say that they haven't been down this path. But what have people got to lose? And, if there's strategies in place and there's good frameworks around things and there's strong boundaries, just give people a second chance, because that's what we've been given in Narcotics Anonymous, is a second chance at life. And, the people that do make it are so grateful. So grateful, because we never ever thought that would happen again.
I like what you said, people who have been through similar situations, they do come from all different walks of life. They're not one particular demographic. This can impact everybody at any point throughout their life.
Absolutely.
And finally, would you have any advice to other people who might be trying to overcome their own barriers, whether it be similar to yours or it might be a completely different barrier to employment? What would your advice be to them if they're trying to find work?
Look, what I did was I just researched my own stuff, found out, have a go, dip your toe in, be really honest and be really transparent about where your fears are, and get as much information as you can about, can I go backwards on this, or am I going to lose what I've got? And just having that support network around you. I guess for me, I was fortunate enough to find a place like atWork Australia that I felt supported straight away. If I didn't, I probably would have left. I don't know if I would have tried somewhere else, but I guess in that situation, saying to someone else, if you don't feel supported where you are, try somewhere else, because there is something out there for, there's companies that can do things for us that we can't do for ourselves until we learn to have confidence in ourselves and someone gives us a chance.
That's great advice. So, Desi, thank you so much for coming along today and being open and honest and sharing with us your journey. And I'm sure lots of people who listen to this interview in the future will take a lot away from hearing about your personal experiences.
Oh, thank you, Shaun, and thanks so much for taking an interest in my story and the research that you did also to find out some statistics. It's an amazing journey, and I'm so grateful. But it's like the last piece of the puzzle, if I can just finish on that I needed to have in order to springboard me forward into the next stage of life, was getting a job.
I know lots of people, we dread Monday mornings and having to get up early and go to work, but we don't realise the important role that work plays in our life until we can't get up and go to work. It sets the
Exactly.
foundation for the rest of our life.
Do you know what my Mondays every week look like? I get up
What's
at
that?
4:30, and because I do split shifts, I do 4 jobs on a Monday, so I have to be up at 4:30 to shower and get ready and get to my first client. And because there's split shifts, in order for me to work a 14-hour day on a Monday, I'm up for 18 hours at work. That's every Monday, and I roll with it. I love it. It goes so fast.
Like they say, when you got a job you love, it doesn't feel like work, does it?
No, and Tuesdays I have off, and I'm gaga all day, but that's okay. But I love it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear you found a job where you enjoy going to work and you can really, you love doing what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot, Shaun. It's been a pleasure to meet you through this, and
You too.
yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of Shaun's Candid Conversations. I hope you all took a lot away from hearing Desi's story and the journey she's been on. She's come a long way in her journey, and we wish her all the very best for her future. As always, if you'd like more information about anything we discussed, please check out the links in the show notes. And if you are liking the stories that we've been sharing throughout this podcast, please be sure to click subscribe on whichever platform you stream your podcast. Take care, guys, and I'll see you next time.